screen starts glowing and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the is a good score. Dan and Brian, gonna give you the goods. You know we won't be lying. Gonna give you the goods. Masterpiece or trash. Gonna give you the goods. That's why you gotta listen. Gonna give you the goods. Action.
Hey listeners, welcome to the 210th episode of The Goods, a film podcast. Brian, you out there?
I'm here, Dan.
We're getting close to the filming of your master's capstone.
That's right. It's less than a week away, so it's basically here. I'm running around, finishing details of production design, hoping that everybody shows up at the time they're supposed to show up on the day. So it's exciting. It's going to be a big undertaking, but I think we've built up to it, so I think we can do it.
Well, we're pulling for you on the goods. We're excited for, what is it called? Lobsters at Beach Party Point?
That's right. The Lobsters at Beach Party Point.
Very exciting.
So, I think it's going to be a good experience. Thanks to everybody in the Discord for their support. Shout out to Gavin especially, big donor, big money donor. Also Dan, my co-host, my associate producer.
We're happy to support you, Brian. Listeners, you can go find us on thegoodsfilmpodcast.com. We'd love to have you there. So yeah, good luck, Brian. We're soon going to be a podcast run by a filmmaker.
That's right. And what's new with you lately, Dan? Because all of us have lives behind the mic.
It's like behind the music on, was it VH1? Not too much. I've been writing a lot of reviews still, trying to keep up my daily streak. And getting ready for summer. Swim team starts in less than a week now. It's crazy. May really flew by. I was like, today's what, like the 7th or 8th? Like legitimately 2 days ago. I was like, what is it, the 7th or 8th of May? And it was the 21st. I was like, how did I miss by that much in my head? Like normally I'm within like 3 days in my estimates. But yeah. So, Brian, today we are discussing a film, arguably. No, I think it's definitely a film. It is a comedy, arguably. I think you'd definitely say it's a comedy. And that is the 2012 Project X.
Yes. I've got our notes document pulled up, and it's shorter than it's ever been, so we'll see how long this discussion actually goes. It's kind of a free-form movie. It's like jazz. It's unrestrained by design.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's experiential. So Project X is a comedy, but it is notable for its format. So it is essentially a found footage movie about a party that a group of 3 high schoolers throw. And then the footage is ostensibly shot by one of their friends who is hanging around with a camcorder. I guess like the idea that we're told up front is that they're filming it because they're hoping this is going to be an epic party and they want to catch it in real time. So we have talked found footage multiple times here on The Goods at this point. We talked The House is October Built. And I feel like there was one other one, Brian. I can't remember now.
We watched Ghost Watch.
Oh, yeah.
Which was framed as the TV broadcast at a haunted house.
That's right.
And yeah, we've kind of talked about the format more broadly and how it tends to be horror. We talked a little about Cloverfield. But then Dan said, well, there's this other one from a different genre. It's a comedy. It's called Project X. And now here we are. We've cycled back around and we've watched it. I had not seen it before. I think you had. Is that correct, Dan?
This was my second time seeing this film. The first time I saw it was at a beach house with my brother Will. So we typically go on like one family trip a year, by which I mean my siblings and parents. and we've gone to the beach a handful of times. This year we're going to go to Indianapolis. We usually do it in the summer. And I watched it with him. I had never seen it, but I had heard about it. I was reading a little more about found footage this week. So I kind of associate it being kicked off with the Blair Witch Project. And I think Blair Witch Project is like the core text. Like basically all found footage is mimicking or reacting to the things that Blair Witch Project did. I think Blair Witch is a phenomenal film. But the wave of movies really kicked off with Paranormal Activity. So Blair Witch was like right around 2000. I forget exactly when it was.
Yeah, it was like 98. And I have respect for Blair Witch as really setting the standard and putting this format on everybody's map. It felt fresh and innovative. I just don't think it's very scary. Like, it was set up for me, like, really hyped of, oh, this is terrifying. It's real. And then I watched it. It's like, I don't know. It's like a lot of people walking around in the woods and yelling at each other. And then, you don't really see anything happen. I don't know. It didn't win me over other than respecting the craft.
So it was 1999, the film came out, Blair Witch Project. And I think a couple things. One, I think because it was novel to some extent, like this idea of you really feeling like you're in the action, like somebody's carrying around a camera. Probably it earned a reputation for being scary just because we didn't really have this in our cinematic language. At least most people didn't. Now, obviously, there were things that preceded it. Like we talked about Ghost Watch, and I've heard Cannibal Holocaust has some elements of like you're watching the real footage or something, simulating the fact that it's real and not a movie. But I also think that I kind of disagree with you in that I've rewatched it a bunch of times, even after having seen other found footage. And I like halfway through, I kind of feel the same as you. I was like, oh, wait, is this actually scary? But to me, what does make it scary is like just the perspective that you have. There's no establishing shots. There's no like look all around you. You're like in their headspace. You're in their psychology. You're in their viewpoint. And it just like the paranoia and the sense that like you're doomed just kind of encroaches in on you. And yeah, like I don't know. I find it effective. But I think one thing I've heard is that it's extremely subjective how people react to that. And honestly, probably all found footage to some extent.
We've also talked a bit about the VHS series of anthology films that are all kind of broadly presented as found footage. And an issue that I saw in some of those is it starts to stretch credibility of would they be carrying a camera at this point? And also, like, how did this end up in a finished format for somebody to watch? Like, if that's the conceit that this is being... Either it's like a pile of footage that's found, like on a hard drive or a VHS tape or a DVD. What actually is the process that led to it existing as a piece of watchable media?
I think that's a great point. I think different found footage movies confront that problem in different ways. I really feel like Blair Witch kind of nailed it because A, they were making a movie, and B, like... they were just walking around and like just hit and play on the camera. And most of it was, not much happening. So it really did feel like something that could be filmed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the original Blair Witch does a great job of that. Also Cannibal Holocaust. Also the first Paranormal Activity, which I think is the only one I've seen all the way through, where it's like, it's all closed circuit cameras. It's just like something that was spooling to a hard drive from a bunch of cameras around a house.
Cloverfield's kind of a ridiculous one in that regard. Like, he's running for his life. Why is he still holding up a camera and recording? Also, his battery life on that thing must have been insane because that one spans like 36 hours or something. I think at some point found footage movies were just like, nobody thinks this is real. and most people don't care. Like I have to kind of actively think about it. Like, would they actually be filming? Most of the time, that doesn't bug me, and I imagine most people are the same. But there's probably a straining point where you're like, this is no longer found footage. This is just like cheap production aesthetics, you know?
Right. The houses October built really bothered me. We talked about that in that episode and subsequently in our 200 retrospective, but it starts out with a flashback. So like or it's not even a flashback, it's like a flash forward. It's showing you the end of the movie first, and then it goes back to chronological from like a sensible starting point. And I was immediately presented with the question of who's editing this? It's not just like we found assorted footage. It's somebody put this together in this order, and who did that and why.
Right. And again, I think the extent to which these things bother you, but you're right. And the thing about that one is like, it doesn't make the movie better, like that opening bit. But yeah, so Blair Witch, kind of, if you're going to like compare found footage to slashers, both were like big horror movements. Blair Witch is a little bit like Halloween in that it was still kind of the standard that everyone was looking at. And then Paranormal Activity would be the Friday the 13th, which came a few years later, and which really turned it into, instead of a one-off, a wave by itself. So like, you know, Halloween came out in 1978, but Friday the 13th came out, I think it was like 80 or 81. And then from there, you were getting 25 slashers a year. Well, that's kind of how found footage was. It was like, okay, Blair Witch in 99, and then Paranormal Activity in, I think it was 07. And then you were getting 20 found footages a year. So this kind of comes as that's starting to burn out. The question becomes, okay, how do we keep this fresh? And so here we have it as a raunchy comedy instead of a horror movie. What if it was a raunchy comedy? And the film is directed by a music video director who's made 2 or 3 movies. His name is Nima Nourizadeh. I looked up how to pronounce it. I already forgot it.
Is that like Persian or something? What's his background?
British Iranian.
I called it Persian.
His other film of note is he made a Jesse Eisenberg, Kristen Stewart action comedy called American Ultra a few years later. He might have had another small release. I'm not sure, but those are kind of his two movies of note. And and his experience leading up to that is he was mostly a music video director. And I think that shows in the film. I think you can very much see his instincts as a music video director in this film. So this movie came out in 2012, Project X. A couple interesting things about it. One, it's basically like knockoff Superbad, like to a ridiculous degree. And I know like many movies are knockoff Superbad, post Superbad, but X. This is about as close to a Superbad knockoff as you can get, because you got the tall dweeby guy, lanky dweeby guy. That's Michael Cera, and here he's played by Thomas Mann. And then you have the curly-haired, obnoxious character, and of course that's Jonah Hill in Superbad. And here the actor's name is Oliver Cooper. So one thing that the production team behind this was produced by Todd Phillips, who has become kind of a divisive figure in movie circles because he made the 2 Joker movies. Before that, he was mostly known for comedies. He made The Hangover. He made that movie Due Date that you bring up every now and again, Brian. He made Old School. So he was kind of known for his raunchy comedies before he turned to the Joker movies. And here he's a producer, and apparently he was like not just a producer, but like a key creative voice in like letting this thing take form. So he had also been involved in Borat. I do think there's some connection to Borat here because Borat also has the element of like, here are real people reacting to this raunchy comedy scenario. So the production of this film, when they cast it, instead of like normally if you're making a movie, it's good if there's actor recognition. That's more likely to get people in the door. You want faces and names that people know. But with this, they wanted the opposite because they really were striving for this vision that this was a real party that happened. They were trying to recreate that Blair Witch viral marketing effect where people believed that this is something that could have really happened.
Right. So they got these no-name actors, and it's kind of actors playing characters who have their same names. So it really is going for verisimilitude. And then Miles Teller walks in, and they call him Miles Teller.
Well, but here's the thing. He hadn't broken out yet, Brian. This was before Whiplash. This was even before the Spectacular Now. 2012, his only credit was as a supporting character in... They did a remake of Footloose. So, like, he had maybe been in a couple other things. And if you listen carefully, Brian, they don't talk about him as an actor. They talk about him as an athlete. Did you catch that?
I didn't catch that specifically, but, well, for one, we just came off of watching the Derek comedy movie Mystery Team, where it was like everybody, a good percentage of them went on to be more famous than they were in that movie. Here, it kind of feels like coincidence, except that they talk about him. He's the only character in the movie that they're like, oh, it's Miles Teller. They say his full name multiple times.
Right. So I do think they were being... It's kind of weird. It's like, in some ways, it's kind of almost harmed the movie because I think the idea is that he's like this minor celebrity, this local celebrity, like people around town know this guy who's like sort of a hotshot. It is weird they use his last name, and I think they're like playing up the fact that he's a minor celebrity who grew up around town so people would know who he is. But the fact that he's now like starring Top Gun Maverick, you know, it's like, it's unbelievable that he'd just be shopping in a grocery store and like him getting called out is like almost tacky. It's like, oh my, look, it's Tom Hanks walking down the street. I mean, obviously Miles Teller isn't quite at that level, but like it feels almost implausible. But you got to remember, this came before Miles Teller was a name that anyone except real movie heads would know who he is. Except within like a couple months, he was then in The Spectacular Now, which was very well reviewed, and then Whiplash, of course.
You mentioned Tom Hanks. I think you pointed out there is a Hanks somewhere in this ensemble.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the production. So the cast, they wanted no names, and apparently the lead, the guy who's played by Thomas Mann. So I actually had seen Thomas Mann in movies prior to this. His biggest one was he starred in a film called Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which is a very Sundance core dramedy that was based on a book that I liked.
My brother read that book when he was reading all the John Greens. That book is not a John Green, but it's in that vein. It's a Green-like.
Yes. And they couldn't find anyone else they really liked for the lead, so they cast him. And it's kind of interesting that they like caved on the lead. Like that would be, I feel like, the one that would be most important to have someone you didn't recognize, you know, but apparently they really liked this trio. So there's kind of three main dudes, and it's very obviously going off of the three leads in Superbad, like I was talking about. So you have Thomas Mann playing Thomas. You have Oliver Cooper playing a guy who goes by Costa. Now there's a point where he introduces himself to a grown-up as Oliver. So I think we're to take Costa to be a nickname. Yeah.
And like the first time he says it in the movie, he says it like Costa. And then everybody else says Costa. So I wonder.
Did they change it? Who knows? And then the third wheel is this guy named, the actor's name is Jonathan Daniel Brown, and they call the character JB. And he's I guess he's the McLovin character. He doesn't really get much definition. He gets a couple moments where he's like a dingbat idiot, but in general, he doesn't really have much memorable about him. And then you have a guy named Dax, who's the cameraman.
And Dax says he doesn't drink, so that's the explanation for why we get consistently steady camera work throughout the movie.
And then later, there's this whole, like, there's a lot of stuff where it's not really well developed. They're like, we're going to give you just enough so that, like, your brain can, like, connect the dots that there is a story here without actually putting a story here. So, like, one thing they kind of hint at is, like, Dax being, like, having this dark history, like, dark life going on. Because at the end, they're like, oh, I live by myself. I don't have any parents. And there's, like, a little thing at the end where, like, they're investigating whether Dax was involved in the disappearance of his parents. And it's like, I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, okay. And then there is a love interest. And the love interest is played by this actress named Kirby Bliss Blanton. Character's named Kirby. I think all the characters are just playing, like, themselves, essentially. Their characters are named after themselves. And they were told to, like, bring some authenticity to the character, you know, so like some of themselves to the character. So, Brian, I was wondering if you noticed that Project X is one of those movies, the ones that I've been talking about since the start of the podcast.
Yeah, so a couple reasons this is a Dan Core movie. It's all over the course of one night, and yeah, it's the female friend is in love with the male protagonist. But there were a couple reasons why it felt different than some of the other ones we've watched that fall into that basket. One is, I mean, she's just ridiculously good looking. Like, she is not the ugly duckling by any means. And I guess I'll go into a couple of the other reasons as we go along.
Sure, yeah. I mean, to me, the big reason is that they, like, again, I couldn't even honestly tell you, like, for sure, is it supposed to be that she's into him or is it that he's into her? Because there's a couple times, most of the times it seems like the secret is that she's into him. Like, that's kind of the thing the whole time, and he's got to realize that. But then at one point, he just is like, guys, I'm really into her.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, is that they're both into each other and they keep both sneaking away from the party to be with each other. And he's like, it's not about the party, it's about being with her. And, well, if you already know that, then there's basically no arc here. Right.
Yeah, it's a fill in the blank storyline where you're just supposed to kind of recognize its shape, you know, and let the rest be there. But there is, like, the thing where he kind of has the shot with the hot girl, the cheerleader captain or something, who gets kind of introduced when they're advertising the party at the beginning. And then she shows up later, and then he's finally got his shot with her. It's what he's been waiting for. Everybody's drunk, and he starts hooking up with her. And then, of course, that's what makes him the friend Kirby walks in, and he's like, oh, makes him realize he wanted to be with her, except he basically already had that realization from the beginning, so it doesn't really carry any impact at this point.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, the trajectory is very off because so they set up this party for Thomas's birthday, and he's going to be the man of the hour. And like Superbad, they're going to catch up for any missed milestones because they're kind of these dorky guys. But now they're throwing this big party that everybody's invited to, and everybody actually shows up, including the really hot girl. And they're like, oh, she's here and she's the hottest, so she should go to the host of the party, which is you, Thomas. Except Thomas is already making out with Kirby at this point, and it's almost like an obligation. He's like, oh, right. All right, well, if you say so. And then he goes and hooks up with this other girl.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more to it. It's like he and Kirby, like, were just starting to get going, and then there was, like, a coitus interruptus. And then, like, the moment was lost. And then he's like, oh, yeah, that's right. The hot girl's here. She was the one I wanted to hook up with. So that actress's name is Alexis Knapp. And she's actually married to the actor Ryan Philippe, who was in a lot of teen comedies like 10 years before this. He was the star of I Know What You Did Last Summer and Cruel Intentions. I guess those aren't comedies. Those are dramas. But yeah. But yeah, so we're kind of hopping around here. So that you're right. It's kind of one of the movies that we've been talking about ever since Some Kind of Wonderful, and we've probably talked about 5 of them at this point, where the guy has a best friend that the whole point is he needs to realize he's in love with the best friend, but he has a shot with the girl that he thinks that he wants. But no, he's got to realize that it's the main girl, and he has to have the love epiphany. But it's kind of all off. So you can only sort of half count it as one of those.
Right. But what do we watch? We watched Snow Day. We watched You Belong With Me.
Oh, yeah. We watched the time loop one. What was that called? You called it the Dick Time Machine movie.
Oh, Premature.
Premature. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. There might have been one other one in there too. But yeah, so that I thought that was, I had almost forgotten that when I started watching it again, that it's a good tradition to watch this kind of movie. So the production, they filmed for like a month, and they basically just had a party every single night, and everybody, it wasn't in fact just one person filming. They had a lot of people filming. And like that actually was how they made the movie. They actually just threw a bunch of parties and edited the footage together. So parts of it are certainly staged. They're like, oh, we want a clip that's this. But like apparently a lot of it is not staged. It was like they just happened to catch what was going on at a party. So
that's kind of cool. They do kind of have it both ways by saying that we've got this one main cameraman, but then the opening title card thanks everyone who submitted footage. So I guess the idea is that everybody in this day and age has smartphones, everybody's shooting videos of things, and that they all kind of contributed to this documentary, I suppose.
So Brian, when did you get a smartphone?
That's a great question. I had a BlackBerry in undergrad, which would have meant by like 2011, I had something that was kind of a smartphone. What about you?
So I got one for work. I was like a dumb phone enthusiast. I didn't want a smartphone. And then it became very inconvenient to never have access to my email with my job, where I was running around from spot to spot when I was running a summer camp across multiple locations. So not having access to emails turned out to be a problem there, or the internet, because we had like these sort of staff web pages to access stuff. So I basically negotiated with my employer, who is just this one guy that you and I have both worked for, Brian, that he would pay half of the increase in cost per month from upgrading from a dumb phone to a smartphone. And I think that was summer 2012. So it was sometime between 2011 and 2012. So one of my points on Project X is I think it's like the first, maybe not the first, but like kind of the key, rendering the experience of capturing everything about your life, and like particularly who I'm going crazy in high school and college and filming it on a smartphone. Like this is the movie that takes that concept and turns it into cinema. Maybe not the first time, but like as sort of like a manifesto.
Right. It was a new paradigm, and it almost makes the movie feel newer than it is, that it has this as a central component. I think I got my first iPhone in 2014, so after undergrad.
And apparently they were like letting in a lot of extras for these parties. And so there's some weird cameos in it. The biggest one is that Chet Hanks, who is Tom Hanks's one of his 3 sons.
He of White Boy Summer.
He's the one who famously went down the path of being, I don't know what's the appropriate term these days, being like kind of a tough guy into rap music, into sort of like I don't know, like the joke is you name a kid a Colin and a Chet, and you're going to get a Colin and a Chet, because Colin Hanks is his older son, who has gone on to like a respectable D-list acting career, and like generally regarded as like, oh, it's a nice guy. He's like involved. He's loyal to his parents and stuff. Meanwhile, Chet Hanks is like got SoundCloud and he's rapping and tattoos. And yeah, he had a notable Instagram, basically. And it's the kind of thing that Chet Hanks would do. He would show up to this party that was filming. His third son appeared in that movie called A Man Named Otto. Did you see that one, Brian?
Okay, so this is complicated, but Man Called Otto is based on a German film, and I saw the original German film. And I saw it when I had a year-long pass to an art house theater. It was called A Man Called Uwe.
Yeah. And so the American remake is A Man Called Otto, starred Tom Hanks, but during the flashback sections, when we see young Otto, it's played by Truman Hanks, who is Tom Hanks' third son. So yeah, I mean, we've kind of already talked about what this movie is at this point. Like it's a party come to life. So the first, I would say 20, 30 minutes is getting ready for the party, advertising the party. And I was struck with it the first time I watched it, and I was struck with it again this time, that like this movie does not put its best foot forward. Its characters remain obnoxious the whole time, but the obnoxiousness fits in more with the garishness of the party than it does when they're just dudes walking around a high school trying to be normal dudes. Like in particular, the guy who is the Jonah Hill equivalent, the character named Costa, is pretty insufferable. He's deeply annoying. And like I am someone who likes Superbad a whole lot and likes these kind of movies and has a high tolerance for, man, that character is obnoxious, but like teenagers are obnoxious. This guy maybe pushed a little bit over the limit for me. I don't know if you felt similarly.
So I can't tell you why. I think I was dunking on Superbad an episode or two ago, saying it's not one of my favorites. I liked this energy. I liked this film, and maybe it's just that it's been a really long time since I saw Superbad. I only ever saw Superbad once, but I don't know. I was vibing with this. I found it funny. I thought it was kind of funny.
But specifically, this character Costa. So he wasn't like making your skin crawl with his obnoxiousness.
Well, maybe a bit, but he's the impresario. He's the one putting this whole thing together. He's the driving force. Like, this would not happen without him.
Oh, absolutely. No. So I picked this movie because I thought it was an end of summer party that was just hosted by this guy, but it's actually a birthday party, and we're not really given a time of year. So I don't know if we're supposed to take it. I mean, it's in California, I think, right?
And it must be during the school year because they go to the school and they're advertising.
Right. But I mean, it could be like last day of school or like last week of school or whatever, but
right.
I don't, because I think they say Pasadena, California, the weather there is always between 60 and 80 degrees, right? So like it could be February for all I know, so not an end of it still has like end of school year energy for me. Not as much as Dazed and Confused, not as much as Superbad, but I probably could have been said any time. I don't know if we ever learn what date it is, but it is for the main character Thomas's 17th birthday party. And so it opens the movie with basically just a classic teen trope. I don't know. I feel like there must be some movie responsible or TV show responsible for like the parents are going away for the weekend, let's do a wild party trope. I don't know what it is. I need to figure out what it is. But Thomas's parents are going away, and they're even like, hey, man, we know you're going to probably have a party. Just don't get too carried away with it. I thought that was kind of funny. There's a couple of places where this movie zags. It doesn't zag too hard, but it zags a little bit. And I thought it was savvy, sometimes the way it zags. So I kind of like that they're like, we know you're kind of a loser and you're not going to throw that wild a party. Just don't get too carried away with it. I thought that was kind of funny.
I was wondering, Dan, what's the craziest party you've been involved in? Bonus points if you threw it.
Man, that's a really good question. I don't have any epic ones that I have helped organize that I come to the top of my head. I did when Katie and I were first married. We threw a couple of pretty good parties, but they were like still suburban parties, like college graduate parties. They weren't like super ragers. Like, you know, we'll talk about the heist that this movie goes to before we get to the end of it, but like nothing that's even a fraction of what's going on here, of course. I've been to some big ones, and they were mostly like frat parties in college, but I can't say I ever hosted one or organized one. But I have a feeling you have an answer to this.
So I've got one, and I would not say I'm a partier or get invited to a whole lot of parties, but this happened at MagFest, which is a big convention that happens annually around us in Maryland, and it's like music and anime and gaming themes, so it already caters to a certain type of crowd, but a whole lot of people go. It's at this big resort that always sells out, and it's, you know, it's, I think it's like 20,000 people can stay there. It's a whole lot of people. But my friend, kind of a mutual friend, he worked for our mutual company for a while, a guy named Alex, is very like plugged into the MagFest planning community and like works at MagFest each year as one of the organizers, and so as part of that gets like the biggest suite in the resort. Or at least he always gets a suite, and it's always pretty, you know, well portioned. It's got good amenities. Anyhow, and so at this resort, there's this big atrium. It's like this open courtyard that a bunch of the nice rooms look into, this like 14-story open indoor space. And so the suite opens onto the atrium, and one of the years, he threw one of the big parties. And like word spread through the whole resort that this was going to happen. And there were like, I don't know, 200 people at a time crammed into this hotel room, which was a decent hotel room, but it's still a hotel room. Small to hold 200 people. So it was wall-to-wall people, and just people continually filing in. Loud, crazy. I was eating weed brownies with Paul K. And the best part of the evening was, so my friend Ben, who was my co-host, my sidekick on Gauntlet, he was the DJ at this party, and I think he was at least engaged. He might have been married already. But this girl came in, young woman, who was talking to me for a while to get to Ben. Ben's a handsome fella, and she was dead set on getting over there to Ben at the DJ table, and she gradually made it over there, and then she was flirting with him. And she's like, "Oh, you're a DJ? Can you teach me to DJ?" And to his credit, he shut her down. But the way that he did it was really funny. He's like, "I just press a button." And I liked that succinct way of throwing the ice water. I found it very funny. Maybe the brownies were kicking in at that point, but I had a hard laugh at that. But very crowded party, very loud and crazy, and a whole lot of people. And it was just a moment where we knew that we were the people who had the good party.
Yeah, and you're still riding that high.
I was thinking of that watching this movie.
Yeah, so you understand it. You understand the thrill of being the social center of the galaxy, you know? So some of the things they do to prep for this party, they get some liquor. They recruit Miles Teller to come. One thing we learn later is that apparently Costa, to get all this going, he's put ads up on Craigslist for the party, which to me very much dates this movie. Like, that's the kind of thing that would be very 2012.
Right. It's a funny moment in time because we've got the Craigslist ads. He says he put something out on the radio.
Right. It's like, okay.
he's like stapling things to telephone poles. But then also everybody's got these smartphones, so it's a transitional period.
Yeah. They also, one key moment is they go to this drug dealer's house, and they are going to buy some pot from him. And Costa has this idea, hey, he's got this goofy gnome statue. And I think the gnome is like giving a middle finger, and they're like, "Oh, that we should steal that, and it can be the mascot for our party." And so they grab the gnome on their way out, and they think they're just stealing like this little piece of kitsch. but like the drug dealer loses his mind and chases after them, and then they escape. And it's a good like jump scare almost moment. Like it's like you think they've finished the beat of like running away from the crazy drug dealer, and then he reappears and is like hammering his fist on the back windshield trying to get his gnome back. And you think it's just because he wants his gnome. Give me his gnome because he's a crazy guy. But it's Chekhov's gnome, Brian.
That's right. It pays off.
And they make a classic stop to the store to buy the liquor. But again, that's where they meet Miles Teller. And they have to let the neighbors know. They're like, oh, we're going to be holding this little shindig tonight. And if you run into any issues, just come let us know. I'm wondering why they even bothered doing this, because obviously they're not going to take any action on it. I guess the idea is like, oh, this will minimize the amount of trouble that I get into. But like once you know where the party is headed, it's like hilariously quaint. I guess that's actually the point, is like you're looking back and it's like, well, that obviously didn't mean anything.
Yeah, I think it's just to kind of cover your butt a little bit, like, oh, they'll just know that a party is happening here, so they won't be hostile. And
also to kind of meet a couple of the different characters, because some of these neighbors end up showing up later in the film's second half. And then they recruit security. So like the idea is like, is this party going to be great or is it going to be lame? And it really, things are trending towards lame. So like, oh, it's going to be a big party. We need to have security. We need to have bouncers. But the bouncers they hire are these like scrawny little ninth graders or something like that.
Yeah, they're kids. They look like they're 12.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny. But they get some of the biggest laughs throughout the movie. I like these guys.
Because they take their jobs very seriously.
Exactly. They're very intense about it. And they get a couple of good moments where, again, the movie zags. Initially, the idea is, all right, we're just going to have this party outside in the backyard. He has like a swimming pool in the backyard. Like, oh, we're all going to hang out back there. They set up some decorations and some speakers. And at first, nobody comes. Their friend Kirby, who's the one who's like the sort of best friend, sort of love interest, shows up and they're playing video games. And like, well, this party's a dud. And then like people just start showing up en masse. And one thing about this movie that I enjoy, Brian, is it's escalation, 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 escalation. It hits a turning point where you're like, wow, well, this party just got kind of wild. And then it goes a level above that, like 3 more times than you think it ever possibly could.
Yeah, it turns into like a military operation or something. I don't know, they call it a riot, and I guess that's what it is, but it reminds me of like when there was footage out of, where was it after Freddie Gray, or one of those guys on the news that's like the community pops off.
Yeah.
Baltimore or wherever.
Right, yeah. Well, but we got a long way to go till we get there. So at first it's just people showing up, and then they're like dancing and taking shots, and people are jumping in the swimming pool and doing drugs, and like, oh wait, Miles Teller group showed up, and they're cranking the music even louder, and people are dancing. And then you're like, all right, well, remember the one rule is everybody's got to stay outside. So you're like, how long is this going to last? And the answer is about 30 seconds, of screen time. Not very long. And another thing is he's got this little dog, and this little dog goes on his own adventure throughout this film.
I did really laugh at some of the shots they got of the dog.
Yeah, there's some good stuff with the dog, and sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's a little bit sad. It's like, oh, poor dog. I don't know what Peter's opinion on this movie is, but probably not positive.
But it's like the dog in the moon bounce getting launched around.
The best one that they did too early. They should have saved it. But I guess, you got to have funny stuff interspersed, is they up the dog. They tie a whole bunch of balloons to the dog, and the dog is like floating up to the sky. It's just like going up in the air. It's like, oh my God, the dog. Because they have all these helium balloons they've tied to him. But I guess they also tied a string to him so they can pull him down. But that moment, I had forgotten about that, and that made me laugh pretty hard.
And it's like this little Toto dog with the wiry hair, but it's white. And everybody, at the party is patting the dog and summer, like eating Cheetos and stuff, and so it gets all this grime, all this colorful grime all over the little white dog. Dorito dust dog.
That's right, yeah. And one thing I'll throw in here, I don't know the right time to say it. Now, as the party is ramping up, is probably the right time to say it. I think you could probably safely call this movie misogynistic. It's very much from the perspective of a teenage male and like tapping into his id and not really giving any of its women characters any depth whatsoever. Like the closest is the Kirby love interest, but even that is really like a quarter of an actual arc, you know? So like lots of talk of getting laid and all the euphemisms therein.
There's a whole lot of toplessness.
So I was going to bring up, you must have watched the extended cut then. So do you remember how long yours was? Was it like an hour and 33 minutes or was it like an hour and 27 minutes?
Oh gosh, I didn't jot down a runtime, but there were a whole lot of boobies.
Then you probably watched the extended cut, because basically the extended cut added in like 5 minutes of nudity and grossness. So that's at least my understanding. I haven't actually watched the non-extended cut, but when I was reading about it, that's basically it.
But I was watching on Plex, and these little like user reviews pop up underneath, kind of similar to the sidebar I've mentioned watching things on Amazon. But one of the reviews said, "What kind of school is this where the guys who go there run the gamut of attractiveness, but literally only attractive women go to this school?"
Right. Yeah. The women are basically all supermodels. I mean, probably literally all models. And to be fair, it's like a wealthy part of California, so there's probably a higher ratio of that level of attractiveness. But I think you're right. But yeah, like this movie is basically glorifying that the shallowness and lack, where the women are conquests to be won, and they're undressing and imbibing and giving it to the guys is like the ends here basically for the protagonists. Also, pretty much everybody's white. There's maybe a couple of black people who show up, but not a particularly diverse movie. But then again, Hollywood in particular isn't great about those things. Just something I thought about as I was watching it. Another thing, this kind of treads the line of here's how teens actually talk, and like it's very uncomfortable to listen to because basically he's dropping slurs and words and insults that would not fly in politically correct 2025. But I think that kind of goes in hand with the found footage aspect. Like, also it's 2012, so I think the social currents have shifted a little bit on that in the last 13 years. But like the fact that we're like cinema verite, obnoxious teen boys trying to get laid, it's not surprising that they would say things on the edge, past the outer limit of respectability.
Yeah, so a couple things about that. It's definitely a feature of found footage. It's like, oh, the filter is stripped away. The artifice is gone. This is like, it's totally uncensored. It's a thing I like to reference is it's real, it's raw, which is a Melania Trump quote. She was being interviewed. But, you know, supposedly this is coming to you fresh and uncut. It's like the real thing. Also obviously exploitative, because that's the nature of the movie. Yeah.
Exploitative is a good word.
The other part, though, is maybe people who go to crazy parties and do drugs do talk like this. And that's just, you know, it's behind a curtain for me. It's just like, it's a life that I've never lived. It's a world that I've never stepped into. And maybe there are people who act like this.
I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah, for sure. And again, I also think you're right, it kind of feels more modern than 2012 because it's got this smartphone camera aesthetic to it. So I think like some of the stuff when they say something dated, not just like something offensive, but like talking about the Craigslist or talking about, I'm trying to remember. There's a few other times like, oh, that's a very 2012 thought right there. You know, it kind of sneaks up on you. So this party's starting to go kind of wild. And there's like, again, there's turning points. There's a lot of turning points. So it just keeps going and going and going. So one is, this is one of the biggest laughs of the movie, is one of the neighbors that they met comes over and he's like, hey man, this has gotten out of hand. You need to shut the party down. And they're like, no, it's too late. It's going, you know what? We'll party for another hour or two. I'm sorry. He's like, no, you got to shut it down or I'm calling the cops. And then one of those little security guard guys jumps out and tases the neighbor, like with the taser. And it's framed like a jump scare. Like you don't see it about to happen. It just happens. And I had forgotten about this. And that was making me laugh pretty hard.
So I have another MagFest party story, if you'll permit me.
Sure.
Okay, so one of these parties, it was 2019, January 2019, and at this point my little brother was old enough to be there, and he's got one of these tasers, one of these stun gun things. So it doesn't, you know, some tasers work like guns where they shoot out a little probe that does the zapping. This is not one of those like police grade actual gun stun guns. It's like a wand, like a cattle prod, and that's what the kid has in the movie. That you press it up against skin, and then it'll zap. And so my brother at this party was passing this thing around, and so we were each shocking ourselves with this wand.
Tasing yourself. Don't tase me, bro.
That's right. It's a fun feature of a party. Have like a taser bar.
That's good. I've heard variations on that. One I heard is it's apparently really easy to waterboard somebody. Like you basically get someone at like a less than flat angle with their head down, and you put like a wet rag in their mouth, and they'll feel like they're suffocating. They're not actually suffocating. And so that's another one in the realm of tasing yourself that I've heard is you can waterboard yourself. Not yourself, but someone at the party. If you want to like, hey, let's do some torture for fun. Some self-inflict some pain for fun.
Wow, hadn't heard of that one. I remember my civics teacher in high school. Maybe it was 12th grade AP US government or something. But he was leading a discussion of the ethics of waterboarding. And he came up to me and he said, what do you think of waterboarding, Brian? And I had never heard of waterboarding before this point. This was like, again, like 2012. I don't know. But I thought he was talking about windsurfing. You know, where you're boarding on the water.
Yeah, sounds outrageous, man. Let's do it.
It's like, well, I've never done it before, but I'm all for it.
That is pretty funny. So that's one turning point. And like more and more people are showing up. The house is getting more and more trashed. Every time we're in the house, it's more and more trashed. Like the party is expanding from first it's outside and then it's inside in like the main kitchen area. And then it's like, oh, you're not supposed to go in the dad's office, but it's in the dad's office. And now it's in the kitchen and they're like shoving people in the oven. Oh, yeah, that's another one. A small person shows up. I would have used the term midget growing up. I take it we don't use that word anymore.
That's what they say in the movie, though.
Do they say midget in the movie?
There's a midget in the oven. I think, wasn't this, this was, I think his name is Vic Troyer. He was Mini-Me, right?
I don't think that was him. I think he would have been too old to look that guy. And I could be wrong. Probably double check. No, it's not him. It's an actor named Martin Kleba. But he certainly looks like him. Okay,
because I think he's got the same, like, shaved head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was definitely, like, a similar look.
Yeah, for sure. So, when the small person shows up, this is, I think, where you can very honestly use the exploitative term derogatorily. Basically having, he's there just for laughs of like, it's funny that there's a little person and they're picking on him and they lock him in an oven. And then they open it and he comes out and he starts punching people. And even though they're there to help him, he's like running around punching every single person in the balls, and they're like bending over cringing, and it is very funny and very shocking and tasteless.
He's at the perfect height for punching testicles.
Yeah. I think they even call that out. It's like, I don't know, man. His head is like kind of right where the balls are. So yeah. But it is the kind of thing that you see it and it's just outrageous enough to make you laugh. Okay, so now this is like already the crazier than any party you've ever been to, like that I've ever been to. People doing drugs, dancing around, blasting music, jumping in the pool, stripping garments, hooking up, other stuff too, like barfing like it's the end of the party. Someone goes to the bathroom behind a car. So apparently, I was reading an article about this. Apparently, it is much debated whether that was staged or not, or whether someone was just like, again, remember, they filmed this by having real parties, whether someone just like happened to catch a person going to the bathroom. And the urban legend is like she threatened to sue if they included it, but then they offered to pay her double what they were paying everyone else. And she's like, all right, fine, you can include it, which is kind of sad. But apparently who knows if that's true? That's an urban legend around the filming of Project X.
Oh, wow. I thought they did do a good job showing the gradual breakdown, gradual inebriation of everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the continuity editing, very strong as far as, oh yeah, he looks way drunker now than he did 3 scenes ago.
Completely.
And like the way that the hair gets matted and the skin gets sweaty. I talked about this in Hair at the Wind. It's like, that's a mark. People should be getting sweatier in movies.
Right. And their eyes get like more glazed over and red. So we're kind of, like 50 minutes into the movie, maybe 55 minutes into the movie. And I was like, how could there still be a half hour left in this film? Like, if it ended right now, they've trashed the house. They've had this huge epic party. This is it. But there's a long way to go still. And I want to add on to what you said about the editing. I'm not joking. I would have given this movie the best editing Oscar. Like, this is on the level of Everything Everywhere All at Once and just like the sheer audacity of the editing. Like, it's edited like a music video all the way through. And normally a music video is like 3 minutes. And so you can like have all these different streams kind of like montaging through them that kind of sort of builds a kinetic energy. The fact that this maintains this for like an hour and a half is particularly the second half of this movie. I mean, a genuine achievement in editing. That's my opinion here.
And at first, that bothered me, that it was very heavily edited. Where it's like, who's editing this found footage? Who put this together? The very first moment that it stuck out to me was Costa's like walking into Thomas's house, and he's like humming a song, and then the background music of that song is underneath him. And it's like, what? Who put background music? It's like, that's not diegetic. That's taking me out. That's making me feel that this is a constructed product. But yeah, then it definitely gets a lot more choppier. And I guess I can buy that it's a lot of people like sent in clips, I guess, to provide this footage. It's not all one camera. It's not all one person's perspective. But it's nice editing.
Right. And it definitely has like a hallucinatory quality to it. Even if it is like one camera or just a couple cameras, like condensing 12 hours of partying like into an hour and a half. I think it is intended to be more than one. Like, it's like I actually wish they leaned a little more into it and like it actually looked like someone was carrying around an iPhone. And like you could tell it was like almost more mixed media style, like different film formats of like, oh, this person had an iPhone, this person had an Android, and it's a little grainier or a different like aspect ratio or something. Like you could tell it was stitched together because it kind of goes halfway there where I think we're supposed to take it as people just pulling out their phones and filming it, but it still kind of has the same texture all the way through. That said, I still think it works. And this is where you can really see that this guy made a music video because it just kind of builds and builds and builds. So one turning point, and we talked about Chekhov's gnome. so Miles Teller, again, he's supposed to be like a college athlete here. So he's like a baseball player. And at one point, they toss the gnome to him and he hits it with a baseball bat. And now we know why the drug dealer was so obsessed with this, is because it's got like $100,000 worth of ecstasy in the gnome. And the pills go flying everywhere, the tabs go flying everywhere, and everybody's running after them and dropping Molly. I think ecstasy and Molly are the same thing. I'm not 100% sure. I've never done either, so.
That's what I think too, but I could be wrong. This was shot well. The payoff of the gnome exploding and stuff flies out of it, and there's, 5 seconds of people realizing, oh, wait, what happened? This is something. Inspecting, oh, it's drugs. Doing the drugs. And just another point where it escalates.
Yeah, so this is another turning point. Like, you feel like the party has kind of hit its apex, and then it just gets more and more. And to me, that is like what this is. It's like, so I haven't taken any of these drugs. This one, I haven't gone too far down the, I've had plenty of alcohol in my life, but I haven't had too much of anything else. And I think like this is almost synesthetically trying to capture the experience of being on one of those drugs. Like the sort of heightened intensity of the visuals and this sort of like fuzzy experience, more montagey clipping. You're kind of in and out of like being in the zone. The music's kind of carrying you away. I think that's achieved. And so again, it's almost like, I don't want to say experimental film because that's maybe giving it too much credit, but it is definitely leaning into like the experiential aspect of it. And that's where this becomes like, it goes from being like a goofy novelty, oh, found footage, super bad, isn't that an interesting idea? To like, oh, okay, this is a thing you could only achieve. This is like a monument of pushing it to its limits within this format of being like, you are in the party, I
was trying to think of how to extend the joke about how this is a movie that's got X in the title, Project X. We talked about X and Maxine, and then I was talking about X2 and Triple X. And this fits somewhere in that spectrum. It does have the poster of the guy lying on the lawn, like passed out, and his body makes an X.
Yeah. And I assume where you're going with that is ecstasy, like X is a slang for ecstasy.
Yeah, I suppose so. Really, I was just thinking that we talked about how the Maxine movies are, they're genre films, but they're like elevated in some way. They have that style, they have those cinema chops, and maybe there's a hair of that here. And
so again, the party again passes a point of no return, and there starts being like, up until some point you're like, oh man, this is going to be a mega cleanup effort if they're going to get away with it, to like, oh, they're obviously not going to get away with it. And like one example is I guess they hotwire the dad's Mercedes car and drive it into the pool. That one made me laugh. At that point, you're like, uh-oh, things are not good here. And yeah, I mean, the house is completely trashed. Stuff is torn up. And then we hit the next point, which is apparently the news is starting to cover this party. The news got wind of this epic party, and news, like helicopters appear above. So this has gone from like a big neighborhood party to like, I don't even like a fantasy at this point. Not that it was ever anything but a fantasy, but like this is like a real event. And then we hit one last turning point, and this is the big one. So the drug dealer returns. He finds where the party is, and he has brought with him a flamethrower. And this is where we get into the riot aesthetic, Brian, because yeah, people have like spilling out of the house, and cars are now on fire because this drug dealer is like, where's my gnome? And like burning stuff up.
Yeah, so when this happened, suddenly things are on fire, and I thought maybe this was going too far. Like, it was too crazy, it was past believability, and I wasn't even sure what the movie was anymore, or if I liked it. But then we see it's the drug dealer from before. He's come to be the avenging angel. And he's running around spraying, the trees and the yards with his flamethrower. And then the cops show up and they shoot the guy's tank and he explodes. And then I was on board again. It's like, this is hilarious. I've accepted it. I've accepted what kind of space we're in now.
Because it's gone from like, oh, this is kind of crazy for a high school party to like, this is a historic event, And there's some shots of like him looking up at the sky, the Thomas and Costa, and like, I don't know. It almost goes from like, we're on some sort of like intense drug living a party to like, we have passed into the afterlife. This is the apocalypse. The world is burning down around us. And we have like ascended to the afterlife, whether we have to go through some sort of purgatory and cleansing, but like, I don't know, just like a lot of this really does feel like we're taking a party and we're literally bringing it to its apocalyptic maximum ends, the world burning down around the party. And yeah, houses are catching on fire, cars, people are running away, and the cops are even like, oh, we can no longer help out here. It's too dangerous. Well, this thing needs to unwind on its own, and then we'll come help out. And again, the world is alight, and then the fame fades a little bit, and it's past dawn, and everything is quiet. So we're in the denouement at this point. And it really does feel like an ultimate payoff, like a build. Like, oh, it can't possibly go further. Oh, wait, here's another turning point, a point of no return. Oh, wait, here's another turning point, a point of no return. When you're literally burning down your house and your neighborhood, that's kind of the peak of it. And yeah, again, the world burning around you. So, okay, so now it's the next morning. The police are there. The parents show up again. And it's the fallout of the party. Somehow they're not that hungover. That one kind of surprised me. How could they be like functional at this point? They're just kind of like hanging out like, oh, we just stayed up till midnight last night. It's like, no, weren't you like at the most epic party of all time? You would be like collapsed in bed at this point. I don't know. I'll tell you, Brian, I gave up drinking in 2022. I miss it sometimes. What I do not miss is hangovers at all. I'm fine never having another hangover in my life.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that too much on pod or off. You went from hosting the beer cast to now you're a teetotaler.
I mean, I guess that's what you call someone who doesn't drink. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't good for me. I don't know, like, I just became scared that I would, like, have to drive somewhere with my kids having drank, and, like, people who drink are notoriously bad at judging how drunk they are, and that I would make some sort of mistake like that. I was also just, whenever I drank, which was most days, I would have a beer or two. I would just feel more tired in the morning and worse and dehydrated and stuff. And I also have an inner ear condition that makes me more prone to like getting hearing loss, but worse, getting like vertigo. And being dehydrated makes all that worse. And of course, whenever you drink, you get just a little bit dehydrated. So as soon as I stopped drinking, my symptoms got a lot less bad. So that was kind of the push that I needed, was like realizing that would have a notable positive impact in my life, is like less impact on my inner ear disorder. But yeah, I was surprised that they weren't hungover. So I don't know exactly how you like come face to face with this party and its aftermath, because it really feels like it came to apocalyptic heights. Some of it is like still imagery of absolution, like everything's kind of washed out in the morning, like you made it through hell and now you're kind of in the blinding light of the afterlife or something. I don't know. But there's a couple of payoffs here. So one is the dad, and the dad is mad at him, but he's like, man, I didn't think you could actually pull off a party like this, man. And I thought that was kind of funny. It didn't push it too far into wacky land, but you could tell the dad was like, all right, yeah. One thing that surprised me, though, is like they seem to pin it all on Thomas, the host, which makes sense from like a symbolic and narrative standpoint. Like, he's the one who has accepted both the highs and the lows of this party. But really, he's not responsible for most of the damage. Most of the damage comes from the drug dealer with the flamethrower coming in. So like, how come Thomas is getting blamed for all the damage and is on the legal hook for that. I don't know. What are your thoughts of the fading down of this party, Brian?
So, I do think it's unfair for everything to be pinned on Thomas. What I did like about this movie is that it kind of grapples a little bit with the consequences of if something went this nuts. Like, we see so many crazy high school and especially college party movies where in the aftermath, it's like the people have to rush around and hide the evidence of what they did and like clean up real fast. And we saw that in like Splitting Atom, you know, as one example. And it's like, you had the crazy weekend, hide it from your parents, hide it from the dean, hide it from whoever. And they're able to do it. Or like maybe at the last moment, something falls off the wall or, you know, and there's some kind of small consequences. It's like, oh, we found out that you threw a party and you weren't supposed to throw a party. And they waggle the fingers. Here, though, it's gone beyond that. They were on the news. There were helicopters. There was arson. And then at least they have to have some repercussions. Like they actually are charged with some crimes and they like have to do community service. And I don't know, there's a little Animal House title card saying what happened to each person.
Right. Let me ask you this, Brian. Do you think a party like this would be worth it? Like, he's thrown his college savings out the window, apparently. He's got a criminal record now.
That's right, because his house got burned down. So it's like, what, like $200,000? I mean, these are nice houses, too. So they got to, like, repair the house at least, if not rebuild.
But it should be on the drug dealer. I'll repeat that. But anyways, yes. So, like, let's say it is all on him. I feel like that's, like, the question. Like, was it worth it? And the argument for yes is, like, for the rest of your life, you can say you threw the most epic party of all time. You can talk about this night. You were a legend, you know? And like that is kind of played up when he goes to school. People are applauding for him. He's gone from the nobody. He's transcended. He's now the hero who put it all on the line for the sake of partying, for the sake of inebriation, for the sake of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not indulging, but there's another word that's kind of like that. Debauchery, that's the word.
Yeah, I was going to say debauchery as well, or decadence. It's like a more hard R-rated version of Max after the Powerline music number.
Right, kind of like that, yeah.
Not wholesome like that.
No, but even that has an element of like, he got in trouble and he messed up the principal and his dad is mad at him, you know, so... I think that's not the worst comparison, but this obviously takes it to a different level. And again, it feels like it's like tapping into like your inner hedonism. Like this is like the most ridiculous fantasy that any teenage boy could have, you know, like brought to literal life and just pushed further and further and further.
Yeah. So realistically, I would say not worth it. But you could always, you know, if this had news coverage, it's like you could always link to that old news article.
Exactly. Or like find it on YouTube and like, hey, this is when I was on the news. And then, yeah, so that was the argument in favor of it's worth it. We said the arguments in favor of like, of course it's not worth it is like, no one night is worth six figures. You know, it just isn't. Like, it's going to make the rest of your life worse. And yeah, like clearly this guy is positioned as like maybe he's not like a all-star student valedictorian, but like he's clearly positioned as like a kid who's going to go to college and have a successful life like his dad. And so like, I don't know, maybe that's boring, but like also you don't want to throw that away for like one stupid night. I don't know. And I don't think the movie is like trying to literally ask you like, is it worth it to do a party this like this and throw your life away for it? But like kind of symbolically like lean in and experience life, even if it means some cost to you and your future, you know, except that you can heighten your experience.
Right. Time is passing. Life is fleeting. I liked the exchange between the dad and Thomas, because remember when the dad left, he's like, well, my son is kind of lame, so even left to his own devices, he can't cause too much trouble. But he says to Thomas, I didn't know you had this in you. And then he repeats it and emphasizes it, that he's like impressed that he did have it in him.
Right. But also he's like, but that doesn't mean the consequences go away. And then he kind of he goes back to school. Oh, his minivan. So the big thing is for his 17th birthday, he got a minivan as a gift. And I think like that's kind of like a lame, you're like a loser if you drive a minivan. Except now the minivan is completely charred from the flamethrower. And so he's like, I was thinking of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Is that thing street legal? Because it's like the charred husk of a minivan. I'm surprised he managed to get it to start. And like there's no door on it.
Yeah, and we talked recently about how, and maybe it was during the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles episode, that the hallmark of like a good journey movie, the visual indicator that something has changed is that the car has gradually become destroyed.
Right. Except this isn't a road trip movie, but still. And yeah, so then he reconnects with Kirby and he's like, next year I just want to spend my birthday with only you, which is obviously the contrast to the party he just had when he had it with Miles Teller and 2,000 other people. So there it is, Project X, Brian. What are some other memorable moments in this for you?
They have a moon bounce. I guess we said the dog was in the moon bounce, but at one point they're up on the roof of the house and they jump off the roof of the house into the moon bounce and it like deflates.
Right. That was pretty good. I like that one. They both do. But the cameraman, I think, or is it JB? I don't know. But I thought he had a camera with him when he jumped, but I felt like we never got the shot of him jumping, like what the camera saw when he jumped off.
Oh, so, I wanted to see that, and I don't think we did. I thought maybe it would play during the credits or something, and I didn't see it. But it's funny, because he, like, jumps once it's already deflated, and I was wondering, how's that going to work? And it seemed like he was okay, and then he gets up, but then his thumb is, like, snapped around to the other side of his hand.
He holds it up, and it's like, oh! It's like, he's okay, except he's not quite. Yeah. Because that is the beat where, like, someone would die or something like that, you know? There's one point when like the security kids are like trying to hold off the neighbors and they're like, where are you? He's like, I'm in their house. And he's like, no, dude, you don't want to break into their house. That made me laugh too.
Yeah, I like that as well.
So are you more Thomas or are you more Costa? And do you want to be more Thomas? Do you want to be more Costa? Where do you see yourself in this?
Oh gosh. I might be JB. I don't know. He's the one, he shows up to the party in a suit, and they kind of give him grief that he's in a suit. But I feel like if I was hosting, I probably would. You know, it's like you want to be classy. You want to be the Gatsby. Right.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
What about you? What's your feeling? And I guess as far as how would I change, I'm definitely not as unrestrained as the people depicted here. So in that regard, maybe more Thomas.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned the dad who shows up with the neighbor dad, and then he gets a stinger at the end where it's like, they're like, oh, and somebody threw up on our doorstep. And the dad's like, yeah, who could that be?
Yeah, there was a couple parts to it because, yeah, they point out the old guy several times partying and he's got a mustache. And then, like, in the aftermath, the news is interviewing the neighbors. Aren't you scandalized? Isn't this terrible? He's like, well, kids will be kids. And he's very, very, you could tell, hungover.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, I would be none of these people because I would never go to a party this big. I definitely see more of myself in Thomas, though, than anyone else. I don't have the Costa, you just got to put it all on the line. Maybe like every now and then I got little bits of that, but that's definitely not my dominant personality type.
Makes me think of I think it's Bruno with Sacha Baron Cohen, and he's talking to these rednecks, and he's like, Sex in the City, which character would you be? And they say, none of them. I wouldn't be any one of them.
They also had a thing at the end, in addition, like we talked about the news coverage, but they have little bits of like a fake Jimmy Kimmel coverage of this. I always like when you get like real late night hosts or news hosts like pretending to be themselves in a movie, but like covering the thing in the movie. That's a beat I always enjoy.
Yeah, and we talked about that with Ghostwatch, for instance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what else there is to say about Project X, Brian. It's not a plot heavy movie. It's a montage heavy movie, an experience heavy movie. But are you ready to rate, or is there anything else you want to discuss?
I'm ready to say, is it good?
So Is It Good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from a 1 out of 8, a very not good, up to our masterpiece rating, toward a good, an 8 out of 8. So Brian, I will ask, is Project X from 2012 good?
For me, this lands squarely in good. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 8. I did have a positive experience. You know, it was kind of debauched by design, but I thought it was funny. I liked the editing. It grew on me. At first, I was feeling stretched by, did I accept this as found footage? Did it seem real at all to me? And it was much more chopped up than what I expect from found footage. Like, it's not the unedited feed from a security camera. But I liked how it was put together. I frequently laughed. It's got some out there stuff, but positive aftertaste. What about you?
To me, this movie is the epitome of unrateable, because I think if you like pitch it at a logline level, like a narrative, here's the premise of the movie level, and talk about how it executes that premise, I think you would say it is not a successful movie. I think you would say it is kind of a jokeless or like joke light, obnoxious, super bad riff that is basically like, oh, if we do it in found footage, it's new. But the characters are more unlikable and less iconic and just kind of mean to each other. And then the movie gets going and it gets to the party, and all of a sudden the narrative pitch is no longer what the movie is, because now the movie is like an idol that you bow before, like the unleashed inner fantasy of the teenage boy id just brought to its ultimate heightened level. And like it's like a masterpiece of that. And it goes in places and has presentation elements that have never been topped, never been surpassed, or pushed further. There's this phrase, I think it's Pareto. The concept is basically like, I'm sure it has like a specific origin, but the way that I understand the phrase is like something that is on the Pareto curve is there is nothing that is more that thing than that thing. It's like the outermost experience of that concept. And so like this is a toward a good of this thing, like pushed to its outer limit. It is on the Pareto curve. There is nothing that is more Project X than Project X. But that doesn't necessarily mean as a whole movie it's good. When I wrote a review of it for the website, for my website, thegoodsreviews.com, back in, I think it was 2022 or 2023, I gave it a 4 out of 8. And I basically like reckoned with exactly what I'm talking about now. It's like, it doesn't really feel like there's one correct way to rate this, because it's kind of like a bad, obnoxious comedy that ends up being something totally different. I'm going to bump it up to a 5. I'm a little tempted to go 6, but I just think it's so unique and so provocative and like almost transformational watching it. It's unlike anything else. I'm glad it exists. I wouldn't want to go to this party. It would be too much for me. But I'm glad that a filmmaker was willing to depict it in such extremes. So I'm going to also give it a good, Brian. Project X, 2012.
I remember a sweet mate in college at one point was talking about a film. And he said, no, I can't enjoy this. It's too busy. And that's, yeah, that's one way to describe this party here. Well, I'm glad that you assigned this. Yeah, I thought it was a worthwhile watch.
Yeah. I'm glad that it went to the apocalypse at the end. I really think that made for something special.
It's a little like we talked about in The Substance, where you are wondering how can the movie be as long as it is, and it's like at multiple stages it turns it up, cranks it up further than you would expect.
Right, to an ending that you couldn't have conceived at the start. But it's the only lot. It didn't leave anything on the table, you know, and I admire that. Maximalist, I think, is the word that you might apply there. This is certainly a maximalist film, and yeah, I'm genuinely impressed with the editing and like the kind of music video cinematography, but the editing in particular. The way it all assembles it and it kind of flows. And I didn't mention the soundtrack. It's a very 2012 soundtrack, like songs you'd hear at a party in 2012, but like not the most obvious ones. I think it's a strong soundtrack. It's not exactly my jam of style, but like it really hits the vibe just right. So yeah, that's Project X. And Brian, I think if we can arrange it, next week we'll be having our old pal Thrash, Andrew, not your brother, the other Thrash, on the podcast to discuss, I think it's a pair of sci-fi films. I can't remember. He sent it to me at one point. But yeah, and then you're going to be filming.
That's right. So this is going to be a busy week, but I'm looking forward to it. Do you know what movie we'll be watching yet?
I don't. I mean, I think I do, but I don't have it at my fingertips right now. So I'll send it to you.
Fair enough. Well, it should be good. You know, hopefully everything we do here on the podcast is listenable, is an experience that you look forward to each time, and that you will, in fact, join us again.
All right. Thanks, listeners. Bye, Brian. Good luck.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Dan.